Alright, what's going on YouTube? So, my name's Ed. This is Bro Soda Brewing. I've had this concept for a little bit that I've been thinking about. Wheel of Beer. So today we're going to play a little Wheel of Beer. So the way this is going to work, I'm going to spin a wheel with every beer style out there. Whatever beer that wheel selects is going to be the beer that I brew. But there's going to be a twist. So on top of spinning a wheel of beer, I'm going to generate some random foods. I'm also going to put that on the wheel. Whatever food that wheel lands on, I'm going to have to incorporate into the beer. So that's Wheel of Beer. I could be brewing a spaghetti strong, a lentil lager, maybe a carrot kolsch. Who knows? We'll find out. But it's time to play Wheel of Beer.
Really trust them. Life on my back, yeah, I really had to cut them. She like the vibe, but I do not trust her. Keep it on the low, she tryna blow my cover. Remember them mixtape covers and the tracks that was whack. Too bad, I ain't know we had them bars like that. Yeah, I got it like that. Yeah, I got it like that.
Alright, so here we are with my trusty wheel. So I've bequeathed it with every single beer style that I've seen on Brewfather. So this makes it easy for me to design the beers within the parameters. At this point in time, I've only brewed a handful of styles, mostly IPAs and saisons. So I'm excited for the non-consensual nature of this wheel. Let's give it a spin and see what we get. (14A). So when we checked Brewfather, it turns out to be a Scottish Light. I've never brewed one of these before, and I don't particularly like Scottish ales, but the wheel has spoken. Scottish ales, for those of you who don't know, originated in Scotland. Fun fact, the flush toilet was also invented in Scotland, which is where this brew might be heading once we figure out what food is going to be added to it. Time to initiate the next phase of this challenge. It's time to select the food item that I'll be brewing into the beer. I have a random food generator that'll produce 10 foods for me. To keep up the theme and drive anticipation, I'm also going to put those items onto the wheel. Nothing curls my toes, quite like watching my fate twirl before my eyes at a rapidly decelerating pace. So let's see what 10 items it gives me. Okay, not a bad turnout. Definitely hoping for something interesting like the licorice, but honestly I don't think anything's really going to shine through the strong multi-flavors of this beer, so thinking about it, this episode might end up kind of lame because the beer turns out pretty normal. So let's add these back to the wheel and see what ingredient I have to use in the brew. Turnips. I honestly don't know the last time I've actually eaten a turnip, if I've ever eaten a turnip. I guess it's going to taste like dirt. I really don't know. But again, the wheel has spoken and must be respected. So before I go to the store, my first task is going to be to do a little research and figure out how the fuck I'm going to use a turnip in the brew. I guarantee some sick bastard has done it before, and not because some divine power demanded it. So I'm looking at my recipe that I've put together here. Since this is a new style to me, I went ahead and pulled a recipe off the internet. So we have a pretty standard malt bill and British style hops. I'm also going to use 3 pounds of turnip. I added it in the miscellaneous section because I really don't know if it's going to give off any fermentable sugars or not. And then we have some Yeast 1728, which is just a Scottish ale. I'm going to head to the store, grab some turnips, and let's brew some beer. So here's a brief glimpse at my trip to the store. Because I'm a troglodyte and I don't know the difference between beets and turnips, I almost grabbed the wrong thing, but luckily I figured it out last second and grabbed the turnips. So I head home, pull out my Hattori Hanzo, and get to work chopping. I really don't believe I've ever eaten a turnip, so I'll go ahead and take a taste. It tastes earthy, kind of like a carrot. At this point, I'm starting to worry this brew is just going to end up tasting like dirt. But I press on. I set my turnip water to a boil, and simultaneously start heating up my strike water. I like to use my sous vide to keep the mash water at a steady temperature. Sous vide is just the French way of saying that I'm of a higher class than you. Using a brew in the bag setup and a way oversized hop spider, all the grist particulates stay out of the sous vide, and it just cycles the wort. With my water at a boil, I now add in my turnips. After a short boil, I strain them, and they are now ready to go into the mash. Now it's time to mash. The grains go in, followed by the turnips. I struggled more than Biden trying to piece together a sentence to get the brew in the bag neatly fitted on the pot. But then this whole picture is finally coming together. Roots, grains, water, all meeting to create what I can only imagine is a disgusting symphony of flavors. And now for the real reason you're watching this video. The sexy part of this hobby. I delicately remove the star sand cap. I can already tell it's so wet inside. I drizzle my hot sanitizer deep inside the carboy. I'm ready to fill it to the brim. It can hold 3 gallons. I'm sweating. "30 minutes later and the mash is done. I remove my turnip sack and give it a nice squeeze until I've milked it dry. Not gonna lie, at this point, I'm rocking a solid buzz, and I burn my hand. While I bring that to a boil, I need to weigh my hops out. My trusty old drug dealer scale comes in very handy when precisely weighing out my hops. After waiting what seems like an eternity, we're finally up to a boil. I'm used to using my propane burner, but since it's a small batch and there's freezing rain outside here in central Indiana, I figured I'd go with a good old-fashioned stove job. I set my Brewfather timer so that in 30 minutes it can shriek at me like a Karen who's already told you twice to put your mask on. Seriously, there really needs to be a setting to make it a less offensive sound. 30 minutes left and I've been biding my time drinking and playing video games. The good thing about a 2-gallon brew in a 6-gallon kettle is there's no way in hell it's going to boil over. So I can practice for the day I eventually become a father and neglect this baby. After the boil, I hit it with the chiller, and once we're cooled down, it's time to transfer to the fermenter. Now at this point my buzz is in full force, and proper sanitary measures have gone out the window, but the end is near. I've conjured up a reward for my efforts, some sketty and butter, and barely seasoned chicken. A feast fit for a king. I take a quick refractometer reading, and just as I expected, I hit my target absolutely perfectly. I really wish I had thought to put the camera in the lens to let you see how dead nuts this was. It was totally the perfect gravity at 1.032. Absolute masterwork in brew calculations. With the wort in place, it was time to play God and create life. I pitch the yeast and give it a good shake. I set my kegerator to a solid 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's 24.9 Celsius. And there we have it. I'm going to leave this to ferment while I'm away for the holidays, and I'll be back to keg it in about 2 weeks. First impression, it smells like a normal-ass beer. Maybe a little earthy scent to it, but that might just be placebo. And not to get political, but it's dark as hell. I don't usually go for the maltier brews, so this will be a refreshing change of pace for me. Back from the holidays, The beer's finally finished fermenting, and it's ready to transfer into the keg. The beer smells earthy, and finally smelling alcoholic, which is good because I'm ready to turn up. A quick hydrometer reading reveals that, just as expected, I've hit my numbers yet again. God, I'm perfect. Additionally, a quick taste test reveals that it kind of tastes like shit. Not really. It just tastes like a standard Scottish ale, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is what it is. After kegging, I gas up and purge out. After some cleanup, I tried to give the carboy a swirly, but failed miserably. Unfortunately, I was the one receiving the swirlies back in high school, not giving them, so I was a little rusty. But at long last, after a week's wait, it's time for the taste test. But first, what's a beer without a little marketing? What's a beer without a label? That said, I'm proud to introduce Turnip Lads, a 100% organic, rich, malty, turnip Scottish light ale. Sitting at a whopping 3.0% ABV, we have a beautifully crushable, undeniably delicious, authentic turnip Scottish ale. Alrighty then. Alright, so after all this time, we're finally ready to drink this beer. It's been conditioning for about a week, and it's nice and carbonated. It's got a nice head to it, and this video is already running a little bit long, so I'm just going to get right to it and get right to the taste test. So, cheers. Alright, so I'm detecting some earthy notes. There's also a surprising hint of floral notes to it as well. I'm really surprised about that. No, I'm just kidding about that. It does taste really earthy. I don't know if it's because of the turnips or the hops. And of course, it tastes really strongly of the Maris Otter and the biscuit malts. So, definitely not my favorite beer in the world. Would not brew this again, but an interesting experiment, led of course by my Lord and Savior, the wheel. So yeah, thanks for watching. Tune in next time for more
Wheel of Beer.